recommendation to the Chief of Naval Operations, Mr. Full Admiral Vern Clark, that a full recovery, second recovery effort be made on the LA-9 site. So the recommendation is going to be made from PERS. Whether what the decision is, we don't know yet, but his recommendation is that it be done. If they're going to do it this year, though, they're going to have to hurry. They only have the month of August to get it done.
What was the elevation they tried to do?
2,300 feet.
Okay, thank you. That's for the website.
Okay, really.
All set?
Okay, we'll start out. If you can just introduce yourselves and tell us how you met your husband, Mr. Kozak, then we can start from there.
Well, I met my husband in 1953. I was an airline stewardess, and he was a blind date. And I was stationed in Washington, D.C., and he was with family. And he took me out to dinner and asked me if I would like a drink, and I said no, I gave it up for Lent because I didn't drink. And he just stuck around to see how much I did drink, and by then we fell in love, and we got married in September of '53.
Okay. And introduce us to your two lovely
This is my
children.
oldest son, Michael, and this is one of my twins, Patricia. She has a twin brother who couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, and then how many of the other crew members, were you close with the other crew members? Did
Oh,
you
I
get
knew
together and
Tony.
have crew parties?
Yes, I knew Tony Caswick, but he wasn't with his crew, the regular crew that he flew with beforehand. I think they switched around after he got to Iceland.
Right.
And so I knew some of them, but I didn't know them as well as I should have. I was with the board station, and there was a couple of the girls whose husbands were aboard, and I went down to tell them what had happened. And it was a little funny because they didn't have the right names. The plane was, his plane was down being painted with the number 2 on it because he had just taken over as exec.
Right.
And so they were in a Commander Smith airplane, not Smith, I don't remember his name. But anyway, they were in another airplane, and they thought that was the crew that went down. So there was a mix-up in Jacksonville.
Right. Okay, and when did you actually find out? Did you find out from Robert Petway that there may be still some people in the crash site? Was that not
Yes.
just a few years ago you also found out?
Yes.
And as far as now, just tell us any comments you'd like to make, anything you want from any one of you.
Well, I just hope and pray to God they bring them back, because I remember I was in limbo until they found the airplane, and it's a relief to know that they're at their final resting place. I really want them to bring the other fellows back. I think their families will be relieved too.
They need closure. Would you all like to add anything?
You know, it was, you know, that's part of Navy life, I guess.
How old were you when your dad's plane went down?
7, 8?
No, 7.
7?
Okay.
You know, we were kids.
Yeah.
After the plane went down, we had to vacate quarters on the base. Mom moved us over up to a neighborhood in Benicia, about 3 miles down the road from the Jackson AS main entrance. I remember growing up in Jacksonville, going to grade school, high school there. We would pedal our bikes to the Navy base. We'd go to the boat club pool in the summers. We'd go crabbing off the dock in the back. We'd literally pedal our bikes out to the flight line and kind of tick off the Marines. They'd run out and chase us off.
The Navy Marines.
You know, it was good times growing up around Jackson AS. You know, good memories along that way. And then, you know, we move on. We go to school, move out of town, that sort of thing. Time marches on. I was playing around on the internet and stumbled on the VP Navy website. That was my introduction to Bob Petway. Bob has been the tip of the spear on this recovery mission. He did not know that there are people left behind. Based on the Major's comments tonight, as he headed up the recovery team's efforts, we can't appreciate the hardships that they went through trying to find these men. We can't appreciate the conditions that they were working under, or the severe weather conditions that were closing in on them, which forced them to cut their mission short. They did the best job that they could at that time. We find out, however, almost 40 years later, that there were people left behind. Now we're trying to rectify that.
Right.
Like I said, Bob Petway has been the absolute leader on this. And hopefully that through his efforts, we'll see the Navy CNO make the decision to go forward with a recovery so that we can repay our obligation to these fellows.
I believe that they can't do this summer, will you, to next summer. I really do. Pam, would you like to add anything, Pam?
Well, I'm thinking we learned that there were still remains on the site in August of 2001, and then of course in September 2001, we had the horrible incident with the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. So obviously this was placed on the back burner because there were other priorities. Then we went to war with Iraq, and when I started thinking back, there have always been priorities. There has always been something going on in the world, some major incident. So I really don't want any more excuses. I think it's time to go back and do something. And we know that the Icelandic team has already volunteered to do this. So if our own government can't do it, then I wish they would allow the Icelandic group to do so. Just take care of it.
Right. Okay, well, on behalf of all the veterans here, I want to thank you guys for coming out here. Just your presence here, it means a lot to everybody here, and I'm sure your efforts here is going to mean a lot to the family members of the guys that are still on the ice. Thank you very much.
In the military tradition, no one is left behind on the field of battle. And our nation is determined to account for all of the missing.
Some Navy airmen who died serving our country have been waiting for a proper homecoming now for 42 long years now. What better way than to remember them and bring some attention to their story on this Memorial Day. Here's Heather Nauert with more on the crew of LA-9.
That's right, Heather. Greg. Well, the military, of course, claims it will leave no one behind. However, since 1962, the partial remains of an American naval flight crew still lie on a glacier in Greenland. Their P-2 Neptune plane crashed while on a mission to locate Soviet submarines in the Atlantic during the Cold War. Now, today, their skeletal remains can be seen during a few warm months when the snow and ice melt from that spot. Now, these pictures have been obtained by Fox News, taken by university researchers who were passing the site. This shows that the remains that the Navy has yet to bring home. I'm joined right now by the daughter of the plane's pilot. Her name is Patty Mashantoni. She joins me from Orlando, and that's today's big question, Patty. Why won't the Navy bring home the crew of the LA-9?
Well, the Navy declares this a peacetime mishap. Interestingly enough, we were on the brink of nuclear war with the Soviets at the time in 1962. So to consider this a peacetime mishap is rather misleading, I think.
Nevertheless, peacetime, wartime, whatever, our military consistently says we will bring home the remains of all of our people who are lost. You've been trying to get the remains of the men on your dad's plane brought home since you were a little girl. Your mother has been involved. Many of the other family members have been involved. What has the Navy said to you about trying to bring them home?
The Navy has largely been very unresponsive. We continue to hear that they're going to study the feasibility of bringing these men home. I think beyond that, we've heard nothing.
We first covered your story last year, and I know that you all have sent many letters. You've been in constant touch with the Navy and members of Congress saying, Look, this is disgusting. We have the remains of these brave men who were out on a mission to look for Soviet submarines just prior to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we saw one of those photos there where literally the spines of these men are sticking up through the snow. When you've said that to the military, you know, I'm just wondering what progress has been made since we first reported your story last year.
Twice, Heather, we should have heard from the military about some type of action to bring these men home. Twice this got pulled off an agenda at the last minute. There has been no explanation. I can't help but think that the military simply wants this to go away. But it won't go away. There are families and former crew members coast to coast in these United States, and we will not let this die.
Okay.
I also want to say, I'm sorry.
Patty, I need to read a statement that the Navy gave us on Friday. We're going to put this up on the screen, but the Navy says that it takes very seriously their commitment to fallen shipmates and to the loved ones that they leave behind. The Navy says, with that in mind, we continue to study the feasibility of recovering the remains of crew members killed when the LA-9 patrol mission aircraft crashed in Greenland in 1962. The Navy claims that, quote, many factors, including what they say the availability and safety of trained recovery personnel, environmental conditions, and sufficient funding must be carefully weighed before any decision can be made. And they say our thoughts and prayers remain with you all and other family members affected by this, especially on Memorial Day. Patty, I know you're hearing this statement for the first time. What is your reaction to it?
It sounds like another statement of we feel your pain, and with all due respect, I'd like to say that since the Icelandic Sea Ground Rescue Team is standing by ready to do this for us, we may want to take the money that we would use for feasibility studies and simply give that to the Icelandic Sea Ground Rescue Team. They're familiar with the terrain. They've offered to do this for us. I suggest that we let them do it and not spend any more time with studies. I think we've spent long enough. It's been 42 years, and it's the duty of this country to bring home these men.
And Patty, we should mention that rescue crew you mentioned has offered to actually pick up the remaining remains for $50,000 as the U.S. military continues to study this. Patty, you've been involved with this for years, and we know that you will continue to do so. Patty, thanks so much, and we wish all the best of luck to you and the other family members from the LA-9. Thank you so much for joining us.
And on behalf of the family members, thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Greg?
$50,000 bucks. It's a paltry sum.
That's right. Well, the military continues to say they study it. We'll see if they
Really
put
do.
their money where their mouth is and do something about it.